Hello and welcome. If you are somebody who eats super healthy and feels like you have tried all of the things, but you're still struggling with bloating that no matter what you eat, it gets worse as the day goes on, then this training is for you. If you've been eating healthy, cutting out foods, trying every gut-friendly supplement, but still deal with this every day, you are definitely not alone. And this is a very common complaint and symptom that I hear from my clients and something that we are able to resolve by getting to the root cause. My goal today is to show you why this is happening in the first place, what you might be missing, and what's actually going on in your body. And I'm also going to go over the exact framework I use with my clients to finally get rid of the bloating for good. So let me know if any of this sounds familiar. You feel like you're doing everything right with food, but you're still bloated, constipated, and have unpredictable bowel movements. Your bloating gets worse as the day goes on. You wake up and feel totally fine, but by 3 p.m., you are tired, exhausted, and also feel like you are 5 months pregnant. You have to unbutton your pants because you're feeling so tight. You've been told to do an elimination diet, cut out more foods, do a low FODMAP diet, try certain probiotics and all of the gut-friendly foods and supplements that you see on Instagram. Maybe you've even gone to your doctor and they either told you your labs look normal or they recommended that you take some antibiotics and do a low FODMAP diet. But despite all of this, you are still feeling bloated. And most of the women I talk to think that bloating is a food problem. I did the same thing. I was down to maybe 10 foods that I felt like I could tolerate. But the truth is, it's not actually a food issue. Food is important and it is foundational. But if we're just trying to eliminate more and more food triggers or add on supplements or medications, maybe you're doing Miralax or Tums or fiber pills. The thing is, if your stomach is feeling fine in the morning, it's flat, and then as you go through the day, you eat breakfast and lunch, or maybe you don't eat anything at all and it still gets worse. Maybe you eat one thing one day, you're totally fine, same thing the next day, and again, you feel 5 months bloated. That's not a food issue. That is a function issue. And when we can understand this, we have a better approach to actually getting to the root cause of our bloating. So here's what I mean whenever I say that it is a function problem. What we want to know is what's driving that function problem. So first and foremost, we're looking at your gut motility. This is the movement of food through your system. And in clients who are bloated, usually they have sluggish motility. You might also, this could be obvious to you if you're constipated, you're not going to the bathroom 1 to 3 times a day, or maybe you go to the bathroom, but it doesn't feel like a complete bowel movement. That is a sign of sluggish motility. I also see sluggish motility being a huge issue in my clients who have SIBO or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Number 2 is your stomach acid, your bile, and your digestive enzymes. These are your digestive juices, and they likely are not doing their jobs well to actually break down your food. Whether it's a piece of pizza or a potato or an apple, your body is not breaking it down well. If you feel like protein sits in your stomach, that's a sign of low stomach acid. And usually we can tell from symptoms alone if and which of these are out of balance. Number 3 is your minerals and your hormones, and more specifically, cortisol, which is your stress hormone, thyroid, which influences motility and metabolism, and then estrogen, which fluctuates throughout your cycle, which is why if you notice change in your digestion, you go back and forth between constipation and bloating and diarrhea, that is likely influenced by the fluctuation in hormones. And oftentimes I find that people will skip these and they don't realize how depleted or out of balance they are, or they don't think that it applies to them because they are already eating healthy. But in the majority of my clients with digestive issues, they have some level of mineral depletion, especially sodium and potassium. And then they also have specific hormone imbalances that we need to work on supporting. Also, when it comes to hormones and digestion, they have a bidirectional relationship. So your gut influences your hormones, and your hormones also influence your gut and your gut motility. Now, when it comes to digging deeper into the root cause, we can see that each one of these function issues can be driven by a lot of different things. So it's not just one thing. And this is why it helps to have somebody look at you and your labs and your symptoms and piece it all together to figure out what is most relevant for you and for you to work on. So as an example, and there are some overlaps with these, but as your gut motility is slow, we want to look at why that's happening. It could be sluggish thyroid, poor metabolism, under eating, low carb, pelvic floor issues, low potassium, gut bacteria imbalances. And that goes both ways. Gut bacteria imbalances can cause sluggish motility, and sluggish motility can cause gut bacteria imbalances, which leads to a lot of bloating. And then when it comes to your digestive juices, these can be depleted from eating too quickly, multitasking, always on the go, high cortisol, poor sleep, overexercising, not eating enough protein, low fat, quick weight loss, which puts a ton of stress on your digestive function, skipping meals, or low sodium, which we need for stomach acid production. And then when it comes to your minerals and your hormones, we're looking at influences like poor sleep, lack of sunlight, physical, mental, emotional stressors, mineral poor diet. Even if you're eating healthy foods, you might be missing out on key minerals. And if you aren't absorbing the food that you're eating well because you have low stomach acid and low digestive enzymes, then you're likely also deficient in these minerals. So a lot of these can go both directions, but it's important to see how many things can really influence your gut motility and why getting to the root cause isn't just following a elimination diet and adding in supplements. We have to go deeper. One note I want to make quickly on the truth about root causes is there is a misconception that candida or SIBO or leaky gut or parasites are root causes. I have clients come to me saying they did testing or they were treated, they did an anti-candida diet or a leaky gut protocol, or they were treated for SIBO, or they did a parasite cleanse. But the truth is none of these things are actually root causes because we're not looking at why they happened in the first place, what environment allowed for the overgrowth of SIBO or candida, and how can we prevent that from happening in the future? That's the actual root cause that we want to get to. The truth is that all of those things are symptoms of deeper dysfunction. And it's like having the check engine light come on in your car and you just covering up the check engine light without looking at what is wrong with the engine. You never opened up the hood and looked to see why it came on in the first place. And that is essentially putting a piece of tape over the check engine light and just hoping that it goes away, but you take that tape off and the check engine light is still there. That is basically the equivalent of doing elimination diets, parasite candida cleanses, random probiotics, detoxes, which really deplete your body even further, antibiotics. All of these things are basically the same thing as trying to cover up that check engine light. So until you fix the underlying issues with digestive function, minerals, thyroid hormones, stress hormones, those symptoms will just keep coming back, which is where we look at actually having a more comprehensive plan when it comes to fixing your bloating in your gut. A quick client example that I want to share is my client who came to me after doing multiple rounds of antibiotics and months on a low FODMAP diet recommended by her doctor. And she still had smelly gas, constipation, major food fear, and of course, still had a ton of bloating. She avoided gluten, dairy, garlic, onions, and had a cabinet filled with supplements because she was trying to do so many things on her own. So we went deeper and we ordered some functional labs to see what was actually influencing her gut and causing her to respond to these foods in the first place. We could see from a digestive function standpoint that she had poor fat digestion and she had low enzyme production. We saw this with the GMAP stool test. She also had a H. pylori infection, which can contribute to low stomach acid. She had low beneficial gut bacteria, which we need to keep out the bad opportunistic gut bacteria. With her HTMA, her mineral test, we saw low sodium and low potassium, which we need sodium for stomach acid, and we need potassium to help with thyroid hormones and motility. And then with her blood labs, we could see that she had sluggish thyroid function, and none of these things were ever checked by her regular doctor. So it was important that we dug a little bit deeper to look at how all of these things were influencing her gut. Now, we also want to take into account her health history and other relevant symptoms. One of the things that makes our approach so different is that we are actually assessing you as a person and looking at your body as a whole. it's not super helpful to just look at labs and give somebody a protocol. We actually need to understand what is going on with their health history and their body that got them to where they are today, and also patterns and routines around their nutrition and their lifestyle. So for her, she actually had a period of calorie reduction where she was eating 1,500 calories a day and she lost 10 pounds in a 3-month period, which is pretty quick. That immediately tells me that her bile production and her fat digestion is likely underproduced, which was the case that we saw for her with her labs. She also, and I find this pattern a lot in clients who have a history of undereating or losing weight, and then they're not able to digest their food well after. She also was just often skipping and working through lunch. So she would maybe grab a bar or a handful of nuts or snack on some fruit, but she never actually sat down away from her computer to have that time for herself to eat her lunch in a rest and digest state. She was also avoiding very mineral-rich sources of carbs because they made her feel more bloated and she was reacting to them. And she also had a lot of fear around carbs because she was afraid they were making things worse. And she had a history of antibiotics as a kid. She had a ton of sinus infections and she also had strep throat a lot. So she took a lot of antibiotics and she was on birth control for almost 10 years. Antibiotics and birth control can both deplete your beneficial gut bacteria. So all of this is relevant for her. And then we also saw other symptoms that point towards gut imbalances. A lot of people think that these things aren't connected, but all of these actually go back to the gut. So allergies that she would take Zyrtec for daily, painful periods. She was told it was just part of being a woman and something that was genetics because her aunt and her mom also struggled with painful periods. Rosacea and occasional eczema. She had these skin issues that, again, she was told were due to genetics, but we know that they are largely related to the gut. She had a ton of cravings, which those little gut bugs love to feed on sugar, so they likely are asking for more of it. She had hair thinning and brain fog and no morning appetite. All of these point towards that thyroid and sluggish thyroid picture. So a lot of these things made a lot of sense for her. And when we put it all together, we'd actually give her a more comprehensive personalized plan. Instead of putting her on another elimination diet or antimicrobial protocol, we focused on supporting her digestion and motility, rebalancing those minerals, and restoring thyroid function. And within just 4 weeks, she was already having daily bowel movements, whereas before she was going every 2 to 3 days. And then over the next 9 weeks, as we continued to build on these foundations, she saw improvements with her bloating, where that 3 p.m. bloating decreased by 80%. Her energy picked back up and cravings disappeared. And she could actually add foods back in without fear. She was traveling and eating out without having to worry about how her digestion would respond. Now let's get into my 3-step method. This is the exact process that I walk my clients through. So step 1 is to actually run the right labs. So we stop guessing and we look at your body as a whole, your digestion, your minerals, your thyroid function, and your hormones that are all going to influence your gut and how your body responds to food. This gives us a very clear picture of what's going on in your body. Now, there are 3 key functional labs that I like to use with clients. We love to start with the HTMA, the hair tissue mineral analysis. We need minerals. They're basically spark plugs for our entire body. So we need them for anything in the body that requires energy, including breaking down your food well. We also like to use comprehensive blood labs. So we are going deeper than what you get at your regular doctor's appointment. And we are reading between the lines is how I like to describe it. So we're not looking to diagnose or see any sort of disease state. We're looking to see what is out of optimal range that's causing your body to not function the way that you want it to. And then we also love adding on the GI map stool test, which is the best way to look at your digestive function markers, your bacteria balance, parasites, candida overgrowth, that H. pylori infection that I mentioned for my last client. And then we can also see different inflammatory markers and how your gut immune system is actually functioning. With functional labs, I like to describe them, they're not in place of conventional labs, but they are different in that they tell us why things are happening. So if you get a test that tells you what is happening, you're basically diagnosing as a yes or a no. Functional labs tell us why they're happening. And this is the same with food sensitivity tests, which I do not recommend these to anybody because it'll just tell us a long list of foods you're reacting to. We want to know why you're reacting to these foods, which is why we use the GI-MAP stool test. And then also functional labs help us to assess the body as a whole. Again, we're not looking at one thing in isolation. We're looking at how it's all connected. And that's why it's helpful to see blood labs along with an HTMA and a GI-MAP stool test, because we can really connect the dots. They also look for imbalances, not diseases, and they help us to see patterns with your thyroid, your blood sugar markers, your gut function, your metabolism, your stress, inflammation, all of the things that we want to see. And then they also ensure that you are targeting the right things in the right order. So many women come to me trying all of the things, but they either, one, don't apply to them, or they are doing them completely out of order. They're trying to do a parasite cleanse whenever they needed to do about 5 to 10 steps before that parasite cleanse, or they actually didn't need that parasite cleanse at all, just as one example. Step 2 is connecting the dots. So this is where we actually map out your symptoms, looking at your lab results, looking at your health history, and connecting everything so that it finally makes sense. I can't tell you how many women tell me that they finally have clarity and understanding just by seeing what's going on with their body, and it starts to make sense. So no more wondering why you're bloated or constipated or why your energy is in the toilet by 3 p.m. We can see why you feel the way that you do. And then step number 3 is building your personalized roadmap. So this is where the magic really happens. And instead of having a one size fits all diet or low FODMAP plan or supplement list, you get a step-by-step plan that supports your digestion, balances your minerals, restores your thyroid function, supports your hormones, and really calms and strengthens your gut so that you can eat a variety of foods without reacting. And when you follow this framework, symptoms don't just disappear temporarily. The reason that it works so well is because your whole body starts to function the way that it's meant to. And that's why my clients not only get rid of their bloating, but they also see improvements in their cycles, their skin, their energy, their allergies, and even body composition. All of these things are influenced by the gut. So if this is resonating with you and you're realizing that this is exactly what you've been missing, then I want to invite you to apply to work together one-on-one. Our one-on-one program is for women who are ready to take action. They are done DIYing it and trying to piecemeal things together for themselves. They know there are answers out there for them. They just have not found them yet. And they're ready to finally understand what's going on with their body. You don't want another protocol or restrictive food list. You want a clear plan with real support, education, and actual answers. So how this process actually works is step number 1, we do that functional assessment and we get your labs ordered. We order the HTMA test, which is a simple at-home hair test that you can do, and you send it back to the lab and we get the results. We do comprehensive blood labs, which are easy to get at a local lab run company. And then again, we get those results back. And then we also do the GI-MAP stool test, which is an at-home test that you will mail back to the lab. Step number 2 is while we wait for those results, we go over where you're going to start. We like to give simple dual recommendations upfront, and there are so many things that we can start with to immediately see improvements with your digestion. A lot of women are skipping these foundations and they're trying to go to fancier things, but we can see so much progress within a 2 to 3 week period with this foundational plan. Step number 3 is your personalized protocol. So once your labs come back, we see how you're doing within those first few weeks, and we build out your 4-month roadmap. And this walks you through exactly what you need to be working on. And I'm also there to support you along the way, which leads me to step number 4, where you get ongoing coaching and support. So you'll have monthly check-in calls and messaging access between sessions so that we can answer any questions you have, but also make sure that you are progressing in the way that we hope, and ensuring that it's working for you in real life. So I don't want you to feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose. I want to teach you how to implement things realistically in the right order in a way that feels really good to you and not super overwhelming. And then lastly, my favorite part is the education and resources, because some of my best clients, they love to understand why they're doing what they're doing and actually learn about their body and have the resources to help guide them along the way so they're not guessing or Googling. So you get a full library of gut health and hormone resources to understand the what, the why, and the how. You get access to my well-nourished curriculum, which walks you through everything you need to understand about your female physiology that you were never taught. You get meal templates, brand recommendations, modern day meal prep strategies to really help you build out digestion-friendly and nutrient-dense foods without having to overthink it or spend a ton of time in the kitchen. That is not my style. And you also get access to practitioner-grade supplements, so you're not wasting money on trendy gut health products that you get Instagram or TikTok ads for. And then you're also getting all the tools that you need to make this feel realistic and sustainable. So even if you're working or traveling or juggling a full plate, you can make this work within your life. And that's the ultimate goal, is to be able to do things that also support you in your real life, and you're not having to live in some sort of unrealistic bubble just to feel a little bit better. So if you're ready to stop guessing and you want to actually fix your digestion and also see that domino impact that it has on your hormones and your metabolism and your body as a whole, then I want to invite you to apply to work together. If you scan this QR code, it will take you to an application that you can use to apply for our one-on-one program. Or if you have any questions, feel free to message me on Instagram at Meg Crozier NTP. I'm happy to talk through things more, answer any questions that you have, and hopefully get you onboarded and started soon. We would love to be able to support you and work together. So I hope this training was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, or you want to also share this training with somebody else you know who would benefit from it, please feel free to do so.